If today feels calmer, but also a little heavier, like something has settled, but not fully resolved, this isn't random. Something shifted yesterday. Clarity came through. Truth surfaced. Something was seen, or said, or acknowledged. And today, you're sitting with it. Not reacting to it, not pushing it forward, but feeling what it actually means. You might notice a different kind of awareness. Less sharp, less urgent, but more present, more internal, more connected to how everything actually landed. Because when clarity moves outward, it creates impact. And today, you begin to feel that impact more clearly. Not just in what happened, but in how it affected you, emotionally, mentally, energetically. You may find yourself reflecting, not in confusion, but in understanding, revisiting what was said, what was realized, what shifted, and seeing it now from a more grounded place. But at the same time, there may still be some weight, not because something is wrong, but because truth takes time to integrate. It changes things, even when it's necessary, even when it's correct. So this feeling today, this mix of calm and subtle heaviness, is not a step backward. It's a settling, the space where everything begins to reorganize internally. So if today feels slower, more reflective, less reactive, it's not because the energy has dropped. It's because the intensity has moved inward. And now, you're processing what it actually means. What you're feeling today is not a drop in energy. It's a shift in where that energy is moving. Yesterday, everything moved outward. Clarity was expressed. Truth was activated. Awareness turned into action. But once something is expressed, it doesn't end there. It creates a response, internally, emotionally, energetically. And today, you begin to process that response, not through action, but through feeling. That's why the energy feels quieter, because it's no longer pushing outward, it's turning inward. And when energy turns inward, it becomes reflective. You may notice a deeper awareness of your emotional state, not just what happened, but how it affected you, what shifted internally, what feels different now, what no longer feels the same. And that awareness can feel heavier, not in a negative way, but in a grounded way, because you're no longer reacting, you're recognizing the impact of what has changed, recognizing how truth has altered your perspective, recognizing what now needs to be adjusted internally. This is the phase where everything integrates, where external clarity becomes internal understanding, where action becomes meaning. And that process requires stillness, not complete stillness, but a slower pace, a reduced need to act immediately, because the focus is no longer on what to do next, it's on what just happened and how it fits into your direction moving forward. You may also notice that your reactions feel softer, less sharp, less immediate, because the urgency has passed, and what remains is awareness without pressure. But here's what's important. Just because the intensity has softened doesn't mean the shift wasn't significant. In fact, this phase is what makes it meaningful, because without integration, clarity stays external. It doesn't change you. But with integration, it becomes part of your direction, part of how you move forward. So what you're experiencing today is not a pause, it's absorption. Your system taking in what has already shifted and reorganizing around it. This is where today can become unbalanced. Because when energy turns inward, the instinct is to either overprocess or avoid it completely. You might find yourself thinking more than usual, replaying what happened, revisiting conversations, trying to fully understand every detail. And at first, that can feel like clarity, like you're gaining insight. But there's a point where reflection turns into looping, where you're no longer understanding, you're just repeating. That's the first trap: overprocessing. Trying to resolve everything at once. Trying to fully define what just shifted. Trying to make sense of it in one moment. But integration doesn't work like that. It unfolds gradually, not all at once. So when you push too hard to understand, you create pressure again, and that pulls you out of the grounded state you're meant to be in. The second trap is the opposite: avoidance. Feeling the weight of what shifted and moving away from it, distracting yourself, ignoring it, trying to return to normal without acknowledging what changed. Because even though clarity has come, it may have created discomfort. It may have shifted something you weren't fully prepared to face, and that can create resistance. So instead of integrating, you disconnect. But when you avoid integration, the clarity doesn't settle. It stays unresolved, and eventually it comes back, often in a stronger way. There's also a subtler pattern today: emotional misinterpretation. Because when you're processing, feelings become more present, more noticeable. But not all feelings are final. Some are transitional, part of the adjustment process. So if something feels heavy, that doesn't automatically mean something is wrong. If something feels unclear, that doesn't mean you need to fix it immediately. It may simply be your system recalibrating. So, the real calibration today is balance between awareness and space, between reflection and release. You don't need to analyze everything, and you don't need to avoid it either. You just need to stay present without forcing resolution. Because integration happens when you allow it, not when you try to control it. So how do you move through this phase without getting stuck in overthinking or disconnecting from what you're feeling? You keep it simple, not by ignoring what's happening, but by reducing the need to resolve everything. Because today is not about figuring everything out. It's about allowing things to settle. So instead of asking, "What does all of this mean?" shift your focus. What is actually present right now? Stay with what you can feel clearly, not what you're trying to define. Because presence is more stable than interpretation. You can also reduce the intensity of your internal processing, not by stopping it, but by not feeding it. If a thought repeats, let it pass. If a realization comes up, acknowledge it without expanding on it immediately. Because when you stop adding layers, what is essential becomes clearer on its own. You can also ground this energy physically. Simple, steady actions: walking, organizing something small, engaging with something tangible. Not to distract yourself, but to stay connected. Because when your body is grounded, your awareness stabilizes, and that makes integration easier. You may also find that doing less actually supports more clarity. Not inactivity, but intentional simplicity. Fewer decisions, fewer reactions, less pressure to move forward quickly. Because this phase is not about acceleration, it's about alignment catching up, and alignment needs space. So give yourself that space today, not by withdrawing completely, but by not forcing movement. Let things unfold naturally. Let understanding come gradually. Let your system adjust without interruption. Because what has shifted is already in motion. You don't need to push it further.
You just need to allow it to settle into place, and when it does, your next step becomes clearer, not forced, not rushed, but aligned with what has already changed.
Let everything slow down here. Not to stop what's unfolding, but to allow it to settle. Because something has already shifted. Clarity has already come through. And now, you're learning how to live with it. So take a breath. Steady, controlled, unforced. And notice what remains when you're not trying to understand everything at once. There's a quieter awareness here. Not urgent, not reactive, but present. And that presence is what allows integration to happen. Because you don't need to force understanding. You don't need to define every detail. You don't need to resolve everything today. Some of it is still settling, still reorganizing, still becoming clear in its own time. So not everything you felt today needs to be analyzed. Not everything you noticed needs to become a conclusion. Some of it is simply part of the process. And when you allow that process, things begin to stabilize, without pressure, without overthinking, without forcing clarity into place. Because clarity has already begun. Now it just needs to integrate. And integration is quiet. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't push for action. It settles, gradually, naturally, in a way that becomes easier to trust over time. So as you move forward from here, you don't need to rush into what's next. You don't need to define everything that just shifted. You just need to stay present long enough for it to become part of you, without resistance, without pressure, without needing to control the outcome. And if this helped you feel more grounded, even slightly, carry that with you. Return to it when things begin to feel overwhelming again. And if you want to keep moving through these shifts with more clarity, more stability, you can come back here. Each day, not to force understanding, but to allow alignment to settle naturally.